onstage interview of Ronald Prins. After delaying it in December, we're finally able to have our onstage interview. Well, of course, as you know today, we're here with Ronald Prins and Joost Schellevis. Joost Schellevis will be interviewing Ronald Prins. You might know him from the podcast, the Glitch podcast, or as an NOS tech journalist. And of course, Ronald Prins as alumni of mathematics actually, and as co-founder of Fox IT, and currently working at Hunt and Hackett. Yes. Well, of course, unfortunately, we're not able to have you in physical here as public, but we're in the aula, the auditorium, and you can still ask questions in the chat on YouTube. We will make sure we monitor them and ask the questions live here on stage. So make sure to have any questions you have, ask them in the chat. And without any further ado, we're able to start. So I would like to give the word to Joost and Ronald.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please feel free to ask some questions. We can discuss them while we're speaking. And yes, it's been a while since I've been asked for this interview. I think 1.5 years back. A lot has happened since then. Not only out there in the world, but also in your career, in your private life, or in your work life, I should say. Yeah. You've started a company, Hunt and Hackett, and you stepped away from the intelligence services supervisor. How was the last year for you? What have you been through?
Well, yeah. For a lot of people, the Corona situation was not that nice, especially for students who should stay in their own house and do all the courses online. But actually, I enjoyed it. It was very calm. Much more family life now.
Working from home. Working
from home, and not. Before Corona started, I think I had 3 or 4 meetings during a week in the evening, and that all stopped. And now we've seen that we can work online, and it works perfectly actually. And I'm a little bit afraid of the future where we can actually go to real life meetings again, because that means I need to travel a lot. And this is really effective. So I can have 8 meetings, back-to-back meetings online, and this suits me very well.
And how was starting another cybersecurity company for you?
Yeah. I made a decision because of that. I was indeed in a function where I did the oversight on the intelligence services. So it gave me a lot of insight in what is actually happening online, what kind of threats are coming to us. Because in my role, I had to approve all the hacking and interception operations. Everything what Snowden has revealed is actually happening from the Netherlands as well. And because of new law, they have asked for a new supervisory board around it, and with somebody with technical skills. And I did this for 2 years. It was new. I had a lot of fun actually starting this up and starting the discussions with the head of the intelligence services and also with the ministers from Interior Affairs and Ministry of Defense. But after 2 years it worked and was running, and I was really motivated to start actually a new company. I think I can, if I want to serve my country, it's a big word, I understand that, but I think it would be best in a way of being an entrepreneur again and starting a company which actually is going to help the Dutch industry in defending themselves against the online threats, and that's both ransomware as well the state actors who try to steal information or try to disrupt critical infrastructure in the Netherlands.
Yeah, because a lot of Dutch viewers especially might know you as the co-founder of Fox IT, the famous Dutch cybersecurity company, but you started Hunt and Hackett. It's been a few years since you've quit Fox IT. When you restarted a cybersecurity company, what changed in the meantime? What was the first thing you noticed?
Well, that's 2 things. With running a small company is much more fun actually than running a large company. Well, everybody wants to have a large company, of course, because of the money. But now I'm directly involved with the customers. I have direct relationships, and I know everybody who works with us. And it's a kind of a startup environment, which is more fun, more relaxed. I never wear suits anymore.
And in the cybersecurity landscape?
Yeah, that has changed, especially around espionage. because, well, let's say like 5 years ago, while working at Fox IT, I also tried to explain to customers that IP, intellectual property, is something they really need to protect because there's a lot of APT groups, the hacking groups are busy online trying to steal your secret information, all your inventions. And at that point, they actually were a bit naive or thought, well, they're probably not going to touch me.
Why would they look for me?
Yeah, I don't have that much secret information. And I think now, this 5 years later now, I notice now that a lot of organizations really have changed that. And it's sometimes not even the people on the operational level working in an organization, but sometimes from the investors, because they have a much more further horizon, that they look for the longer term future. And they see actually that within 10 years, all the R&D is actually not functional anymore if you keep it running like this, because then it will have moved over to, well, most of the time to China. And so they're actually pushing their executives to hire cybersecurity firms to protect themselves against this threat.
And did the types of attack, the types of threats change as well in the meantime? Or?
Well, no, I think it is more intense now. And
it's the same but worse.
Yeah, it is the same but worse. And also, well, yeah, especially around ransomware, another subject we're going to touch on later, I guess. But you see that there's, the criminals, they don't try to hide themselves even anymore. And that is also something we really changed. They feel the internet for them is a free haven where they can do anything they want. So they start tweeting and communicating with their customers in public, and they're not afraid that somebody will be able to find out who they are, although they are on a public website.
Yeah. And did attacks from APTs and state hackers get worse as well?
Yeah, as well. And I think you see that the countries like Russia, China, and Iran, and North Korea is really upcoming. They are getting better and better in doing their hacking. We have seen from Russia a huge supply chain attack, well, mostly in the United States, but also a little bit in Europe, which was really sophisticated. But on the other side, you also see that many more countries are getting active. They found out that, of course, you can have your own defense organization, but it's really expensive if you want to have some international power. But it is much more easy and deniable if you just have a group of hackers and try to steal information or disrupt or influence.
Or even rob banks in the case.
Or even rob banks. That's what North Korea has done a couple of years. Yeah.
Well, sometimes it seems like we're having the same conversation for years now. I think we've known each other for maybe 10 years. And I think we could have had this conversation 10 years ago. And, well, maybe not North Korea and the banking stuff would have been said, but most of these warnings have been uttered for 10 years or longer. Has nothing changed in the last 10 years?
Well, exactly 10 years ago was actually the DigiNotar case, a huge crisis here in the Netherlands. And it was in 2011, if I'm right, September, I guess. Yeah. And actually, I thought this was, okay, now things will go and change. And there was more of a public debate about cybersecurity. Are we doing the right stuff? But I remember very well that of course, there was a lot of parliamentary discussion after the DigiNotar crisis. And I know the same members of parliament, for instance, those days was Janine Hennis-Plasgaard. She was for the VVD in the member of parliament. Before the DigiNotar crisis, she was actually, because it was more from the privacy side, saying, do we actually need an organization like the National Cybersecurity Center, and do we really need a cybersecurity board, because we have a lot of privacy infringements. The government is already online with all their legislation, and they can already look in everybody's people. And the same member of parliament, after DigiNotar, said, well, why don't we have a National Cybersecurity Center? to protect us from this kind of attacks. And this is how politics works, of course. But
Can you draw a direct line from the DigiNotar attack, which was, of course, an attack on the Dutch certificate supply for the digital certificates in the corner of your browser?
yeah.
Can you draw a direct line from that attack to the founding of the Cybersecurity Center?
No, it would have come anyway. But for me, it's a very good way to observe how people think.
Yeah.
And first they think, well, the internet, yeah, that's something, it's fun, and I buy my clothes there, and let it happen, and let's keep the government away because they will only peep into our private things, and they want to know what kind of porn I'm looking for, and that kind of things you heard. But now, these days, I think more people are finding out themselves actually that how relevant the internet is and that it keeps on running. We were discussing the pandemic right now and the pandemic, and I think it would have been a real crisis or even bigger crisis if you wouldn't be able to do all the stuff like with Teams and Zoom, and have these calls. Especially for the Netherlands, we are not that much of a factory industry, but we are a service industry, so we just need our computers and we can make money here, and it's kept on working.
And well, maybe it's good to take a step back to the start of your career. How does a mathematics graduate start a cybersecurity company? What happened? You started at the National Forensic Science Laboratory.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, because I was in that. Indeed, I studied mathematics, and within mathematics, I did my thesis on cryptology, so the stuff about secret writing. And because I was a radio amateur, I like to listen.
Still are, by the way.
I'm still are. I like to listen into other people's conversations as a hobby. And I noticed that the secret services and the police, they have actually encrypted communication, and I wanted to break that. So I thought, well, let's take a diversion within mathematics, especially to cryptology or crypt analysis. And and at the same time, the forensic science unit of the Ministry of Justice, they had a requirement for a crypto analyst because they also noticed that more and more computers are coming into our lives, and usually all the exhibits which are being taken after something happened, after a murder or something, they go to this forensic laboratory. But also computers went in there, and they also noticed that they were encrypted sometimes. So they wanted to have somebody who's able to decrypt it. And sometimes I was successful in that, sometimes not. And I did this for, I think, like 5 years, also for the intelligence service. And then I made the move over from the Forensic Science Laboratory to the BVD in those days. Today it's called AIVD. This was in 1999. And I came there actually also not just to decrypt stuff, because that's not happening all day, that they have like material which is in those days
lying around.
What was lying around to decrypt. They had a huge collection which they gave me as soon as they noticed that somebody was able actually to decrypt sometimes. But there was no legislation in those days actually to do stuff online like hacking or breaking into mail accounts or whatever. So I quit there within 1 year, but I thought, well, this field is very interesting, and I noticed that I was rather successful in breaking in systems. Let's try to work the other way around. Let's help the government to protect actually from hackers, from outside hackers. Not only hackers, because the offline world was also really important. I remember that one of the first projects we did was actually building software to encrypt the laptops which the surveillance squads are using while they're driving the suspects. And they had a lot of very sensitive material on their laptops, like also camera images and stuff, and all their notes. And those needed to be encrypted. So that
they were not encrypted back then, or?
Well, they were encrypted with the same systems as the criminals were using. And since I was able to usually open that stuff, they wanted to have something better, which was really necessary. And it was really fun in those days. You see, today it's much better now, but we had the company Norton, We know them from the antivirus, but they also started building on an encryption program which is called Discrete. I don't think it exists anymore. It was a very good DES encryption. So all the material in your hard disk was encrypted by DES. In those days was DES the standard. Now we have AES as an encryption algorithm. But the programmer, he made a stupid error. For instance, if you type in your password to open the hard disk, you don't want that some garbage comes out. So there must be a check if this is the right password.
Yeah.
And what he did was actually, what now we do is we have some known plain text which is encrypted, and if it decrypts well, then this known string will come out. What he did actually was XORing with XOR operation on the password with FF, which is actually just bit flipping. Every 0 becomes a 1 and every 1 becomes a 0. And he put that string behind the encrypted hard disk. So in 0 time, actually, it was easy to find the password.
Because you could just take the last bits.
Yeah, you took out a couple of bytes and you changed the bits, and then you had the password. And it was a very slow encryption algorithm those days. Today it's all speed up because of the chips themselves. They can do it very well. But so you had very slow encryption, which was totally open actually.
Mm. Yeah. But you were actually pretty good at code breaking, right? Because I've read somewhere that you still have a plaque of the Spanish Guardia Civil, because you actually, well, you saved some lives. Is what I've
that's what they say. Yeah.
That's what they say. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Guardia Civil, they had an operation. They were able to intercept communications of ETA,
the Spanish terror group.
Spanish terrorist group. And they intercepted some material actually in France, because the top of ETA was based in France, because that makes it it's safer for them. Mm. So it was an illegal operation from Guardia Civil. It's a long time ago, so I can tell it now. And they were... And they've seen me somewhere on a conference where I gave a presentation about code breaking. And they reached out to me and they said, we have something intercepted and this must be decrypted within a couple of days, because we know this is the instructions from the top to some ETA operatives to actually place a bomb somewhere. And first actually in the forensics laboratory, you can only spend time if the police gives you an order actually to do something, which we didn't have because there was no cooperation between Guardia Civil.
It was an off-the-record kind of request.
Yeah, so they actually offered cash as well. And I said, well, no, if it's really important, I just do it. So I took it home. They came on a Friday. They actually came with a special military plane to bring the stuff. They landed here at Zestienhoven. And they brought it to me. I brought it home because I was not used. You cannot do your work remotely, and I understood it.
So you put it on your bike, the military secret.
Yeah. Well, no, I came by car, okay. But I took it home and I used the whole weekend. I didn't sleep, and at some point I found a little piece of information which was readable, but I still didn't understand what it was. Later, I found out it was in the local Basque language, which has, we have an alphabet of 26 characters. They have an alphabet of 28 characters. And yeah, stupid of me, I thought all the alphabets in the world will have 26 characters. And also Spanish alphabet has, but not the Basque alphabet. And I didn't know that they have their own little language in the Basque country part of Spain. So I had a translator helping me out about the words, how it should be. And well, that helped me. And I believe on Sunday evening, 11 o'clock, I was able to decrypt it. And on Monday, they were able to do some arrests. People were actually driving their cars with the explosive to the location, and they've put a helicopter in front of the car in the middle of the highway to stop it.
And what kind of message was it then? Because nowadays you would just send a message using Signal or WhatsApp. Was it a radio broadcast? Or?
No, it was sent out by modems. So in those days you had modems, and they used, I think, basic email or maybe the FIDO network. FIDO.
The IRC network?
No, before that. Yeah. Maybe before your time as well. So you had to call into a bulletin board and download information.
That's before my time, yes.
Yeah, and I think they used that. And it was encrypted with ICE only, also from Norton ICE only on a Mac. and I didn't have a Mac, so
But it was breachable.
yeah, because it was a polyalphabetic substitution at the end. Well, just
I'm not a mathematics student.
Just swap. Well, it has nothing to do with mathematics at the end. It's just swapping of characters, and so you change the order of the characters in a sentence through a way driven by a key. As well, you change the letters themselves. And, but yeah, with a lot of statistics, you can get actually you can find out, because the letter E is usually most being used in every language, and you need that kind of information and distribution of the characters in the Basque language to find it out. So what I actually did, I downloaded the Bible in Basque to find out
then you reverse engineered what letter
yeah,
was.
I made it a huge table with that. Yeah.
Okay.
The Bibles were in those days already freely available on the internet.
Also in Basque.
Also in Basque, yeah.
That's helpful. We've got a question from the audience, and well, the question is, how did you get into cybersecurity as a student? But
actually, the same question you asked us.
Well, maybe how did you get from the code breaking and
that's a good question. Yeah,
security services stuff to the hacking stuff?
Yeah. Well, the encryption and code breaking is actually it's a small part in the broader field of security. And what I noticed that, and also the tricks I actually did to break into systems, was actually most of the time not attacking the cryptographic system itself, but more the user or the environment around it. So, for instance, with the disk encryption, which I said with the password bit flipped at the end. Yeah, that's not really code breaking. It's more about security thinking, and the cyber is, of course, the online world, and that started in I think 2000. Google started as well, and that's where the internet started for most of the people. Yeah. Yeah, the company we started then, it was called Fox IT, or is called Fox IT, and was actually, the name came up because we were thinking of forensic experts, forensic from the forensic laboratory. My companion or partner there was Menno van der Marel. He also used to work for the forensic laboratory. So we started the company from the offline world, but the world moved to the online world. So we just followed that.
So what do you mean by you started with the offline world, or?
Well, the offline forensics. So investigation of hard drives. There was bank fraud being performed sometimes by people working. Actually, it was more the insider fraud. So people working inside a bank, they did some stuff on a computer, and to present information in the courts, you need some experts actually to decide on what really happened on this computer.
We've got a question from Adriaan. What is your outlook on the current asymmetry of cybersecurity in regards to attack and defense?
Yeah, and I think he means asymmetry, that it is an attacker only needs to find one hole, and a defender needs to protect,
guard off from all the attackers.
Yeah, and you need to find all the windows. You need to close all the windows, and the attacker only needs to find one open window. Yeah, of course, this will stay like that, and it has taught us much more that we shouldn't focus that much only on the windows, the outside world, which actually translate themselves more in the preventive measures. If you talk about cybersecurity, you can have you have three silos there: the preventive measures, the detective measures, and the response measures you can take. And because this doesn't work, it's a good question actually. The preventive measures don't work. There's always if you can start brute forcing and there's no detection on it, then you can run through all dictionaries and find passwords. Or but it's the same like in building. If there's no detection system, you will be able to break into every house and just by smashing a stone through the window.
Because a lot of times companies and organizations will try to teach their employees to be alert and not click on a phishing link, for example. But is that something that actually works?
No, well, that's a very good question as well. Because, of course, you should do something about awareness, and people should know about these kind of attacks. But usually what you will see is that if you do especially the training with your employees on the using phishing links, this is what happens. There's a number of companies now who you can hire, and they will keep on spamming you with phishing mail, actually to train the people you shouldn't have hit this button now. But what we'll do is, what you will see is it will decrease the number of people who will do it from like 500 to maybe 100, or from 100 to 2. But yeah, coming back to the first question, you only need one person to click on it, and you're in the network. Yeah. And there will always be somebody. And we did this kind of tests on our own staff within Fox IT, and and it was a very good crafted email. Of course, we made an email there in those days where people were remembered that they actually should fill out their papers in the project their hours in the project management system, which this mail is there every Monday. And if you do it 5 minutes before the real mail comes in with the wrong link, then everybody will do this. And like 40% of the people working in Fox, and which are the most paranoid cybersecurity people you can have, because they still clicked on this link.
Is it even humanly possible to be that kind of alert all the time?
No, I don't think so. And I don't think so as well that you can blame the people that they will click on links, because sometimes they have no good context actually to decide, is this a real mail or not? And what you see now is with Emotet, for instance, a famous botnet which was taken down in January. What happens there is that actually they hack into one person's computer, for instance yours, and they will have their software actually sending out new emails or replies on emails which are in your Outlook inbox, which actually comes from your computer. Yeah. And you send out to a colleague of you, you should really read this new report, and because you sent it, he will click on it. Yeah. So this will stay on working. And so what actually the best strategy is actually not to try only to close the doors on the outside, but consciously keep on monitoring what's actually happening within my network, which is getting more and more of a problem, because it's more and more in the cloud these days. We don't have network cables running in our network.
How many companies do that, especially now when working from home? If you have 400 employees and they all work from home, how do you make sure that none of them is giving away company secrets or is being affected in some other way?
Yeah, well, it actually doesn't matter that much if they work at home or from the office. Usually, if you work from home, you need to log in to using a VPN into the office network, so you can monitor there. But more and more people are now using Office 365. And then it's very hard to monitor actually what's going on there. But Microsoft has also understand that, and Google the same. And they have their own security tools in their environment. And what you actually see is that they log everything you do. And we need to, from the security professional needs to find the anomalies in all this data, the telemetry around what's happening. And the other thing, what you see now which is coming up, is actually the EDR systems, endpoint detection and response, or you could also say like the antivirus software we all have, but then the ++ version, which is not only trying to monitor known viruses and alert you on that and stop them, but it is these EDR systems, they actually check also what process starts another process. So if, for instance, if you receive an email, but the email will start up Notepad in the background or open up PowerShell, that's usually not good. And it can stop it and report it back to a security operations center. And these EDR tools are actually really perfect because, you asked in the beginning about my new company and how this is in a new way. We have customers now which we can help without having been at their locations. Yeah. So we run our operation. A lot of people are working from home. Some are at the office. We've never physical contact with the customer, and we're still able to help them because of these kind of modern tools.
We've got another question from the audience. What do you think of the state of IoT security, with a lot of cheap devices not being patched, having default passwords?
Yeah, that is something we need to work on, because and I think the European Union at least is thinking about it. Should we regulate a little bit of this? Here, the issue here is that we don't want to spend more money and on these kind of devices. And if, as a customer, if you have the option to buy, for instance, a network device and a NAS, well, it's not really IoT maybe, but it's in the same line, and you need to start it up and setting all type of complex passwords. Then people will also need to call their support office of a support desk. It's much more resourceful actually for the manufacturer to set that up in a very good security way. It's much cheaper to build, to give people a standard password like admin. But if you would have the two of the same devices, would actually have the same functionality, but one is $10 more expensive than the other one, but has more security in it, you will see that most people actually won't buy
more expensive.
Won't spend it.
But at the same time, and this might be weird because, well, you cannot, maybe as an expert, you can judge a product by the box it is in. There's some kind of gut feeling that some product will probably not be that secure, and other products are made by manufacturers with a good security record. But it is very hard to judge if a product is secure from the box. There is nothing on the box explaining what you should do to secure the device or how secure it is.
What you see now is that the legal people, I'm always a bit in a fight with lawyers, because they think too easy. They say, yeah, we have for every device, even my phone, I guess, has a CE stamp on it, which means that the European Union has approved this device for being used.
It will not be set on fire. That likely.
And actually, it's only very simple stuff to check if this has been built in a safe way. Computers are much more complex, and it's not that easy actually to assess how secure is it from the inside. But of course, you can make some requirements that every device must have a function of doing an auto update. But still, if I visit my mother, I always see a box in the top right of her TV, a smart TV, which says you need to do the update. Yeah. And she says, yeah, I don't want to do it because I switch it on because I want to look at NOS Journaal, of course. But then she first needs to install the update, which takes half an hour. And after if the journal is over, she switches it off and she doesn't do it anymore. So people don't like to do it. And I think that's actually more of an issue, that the owners of the equipment, they don't want to spend the time to become more secure.
Do you have a smart TV, by the way?
Yeah, with a microphone in it.
And is it connected to the internet?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
I have everything, which is a huge risk. I have a dog, and the dog has a tracker on him, so I can always see where he is. And
even when he's out of the Wi-Fi range, out of the Bluetooth range.
It's very small. It's a very fun device. Costs actually only €50, so you can use it also to track your wife. You just put it somewhere in her clothes and your kids. And there's a little GSM in it and a GPS receiver, and works for 3 days.
But how do you combine being a little bit, and this is something that I myself struggle a bit with myself, being paranoid in your work life and then having to use all those fun and smart devices at the same time?
Yeah. It's hard to say that I have nothing to hide. That's argument a lot of people do make. It's
been a while since I've heard that.
But still, I do. I'm also on social media, and I've put pictures of my kids on Facebook, and I hear colleagues of mine actually saying we should teach everybody that you shouldn't put pictures of your kids on Facebook. I think, we are in a different time zone, I guess, or a different age. I want to use all this, and I have a Google phone. And I've put all my data is at Google's. Google can track
Google Photos.
I use the Google Photos. They upload
the security
automatically.
is good at Google, right?
Yeah, it's very good. I use I have the VIP treatment there.
The advanced protection.
Advanced protection, which is also terrible if you have a new device, and then I need to find some hardware token actually to start it. But but they're doing very well. And I've had the banner on top of my Gmail where it said, we've seen some activity from a state actor trying to enter your
really?
Gmail. Yeah.
What happened, or can you?
Well, that's only what you get from Gmail. That they noticed that somebody's trying to break into.
They're trying to break in, but not that if they succeeded or.
No. But I
That's
think
scary.
that's also in this discussion about the cloud. So a lot of organizations are afraid of putting their data into the cloud.
Yeah.
What I see now is that actually Microsoft and Google are usually very much better in protecting your data than you will be able to do yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some exceptions. I think the largest banks in the Netherlands and intelligence agencies, they can protect their data very well, but most organizations are way better off if they put their data in the cloud. But then the legal people come around and they say, yeah, but where is it located now? And I say, who cares? It doesn't matter. If a hacker wants to hack it, for a hacker, it doesn't matter if it's based in Eemnes in the north of the Netherlands, in Groningen, or if it's somewhere in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
The internet has no borders.
So that's thinking from a security perspective. Of course, you also have the privacy perspective, but is the security part of the equation?
Within the EU, it shouldn't matter that much in which country it actually is.
True. Yeah.
And on the other side, this. Well, can I tell this? No, not yet. No.
No. Okay. Maybe later.
Well, okay, a little bit. I'm also a member of the Dutch Electoral Management Board.
Yeah.
We are always busy with we're looking at what kind of software are we going to use in the election process. We try to minimize that, but there is some parts in this process where it has advantages. And we want to, we're busy now with a European large tender actually to acquire this. And we have some discussions then with the people from the prosecution office, not the prosecution, the purchasing office. They say, yeah, you cannot say actually or demand that the data should be in the Netherlands. Yeah. Because then organizations or firms in France or in Belgium are excluded from this European bid. Yeah. I said, well, I don't want a European bid. I want to make it a Dutch bid. Well, that's not possible. And so you see, we have a lot of regulation which is actually not helping security.
But so in some cases, the location of the data can actually be relevant.
Well, it was also with the elections. It's a good question. In this election context, I think we should also sell the trust around it. We should explain to people the elections in the Netherlands are safe. Yeah. And to don't have any discussions, it's much better to say we have the data in the Netherlands. It's not in Belgium or in France or in Germany. It's within our own border to don't have that much discussion.
We've got a question from the audience, from Adriaan again. Do we need a Dutch committee or maybe a minister? There's been a lot of talk about that on digital affairs.
I'm not really sure. Maybe temporarily it would be useful to have a minister. For me, it's important to have a strong director or whatever, or a commissioner like we had for the Delta works in the Netherlands, where we try to stop the water entering the country. Yeah. And there was also a program for a couple of years with a dedicated law around it, and he was allowed
organization.
Yeah, and a special organization. But the importance is actually that you have something like in the UK, they have the Cabinet Office. We have the Ministerie van Algemene Zaken, so it's the office of the Prime Minister. And I think they should be more involved. But you also see that in the way the Netherlands is organized, the Ministry of Algemene Zaken, the MP, he doesn't want to have that much activities in his own ministry, because if something goes wrong, that means you also can be sent home.
But at the same time, well, now the cybersecurity center is located at the Ministry of Justice. Yeah. You don't think that's a logical?
No, I don't think so. It will. I think it would be much better if it would be taken out of one ministry and put somewhere in a central location. And I don't know the organizational structure. Sorry?
But not a separate ministry or?
No, I don't know. I don't think we need a separate ministry. Okay. But I want separate attention and cyber tsar is important, I think. Just one leader who is able actually to tell also the other departments, you should do this better, you should do that better. And
So should the cybersecurity center be bigger and have more authorities, or should it be a separate organization?
well, I think there should be part of that. You have the operational part and also the more the strategic part around it. I think they should have a much larger mandate. So, for instance, if they now, well, it's tricky if they actually do the scanning already. But I think from a government perspective, you want to have one body which actually is monitoring what's happening on the internet. Just like we have the police doing surveillance around our streets also during the night to see if there's no burglars. You can also do that kind of stuff online, especially if we know that, like for instance, 1 month ago, Microsoft Exchange had a public weakness.
Yeah.
So let's scan everything which is important to see if they're open and that they can push that actually the patches are going to be installed within 1 or 2 days.
Because right now, well, actually, in a podcast you've made, the leader of the NCSC says that they are actually scanning the internet for such kind of.
But then only
devices.
Critical infrastructure,
yeah.
And it's really hard to, like DigiNotar, right? The company we had one huge crisis in the Netherlands was DigiNotar, which is not considered to be critical infrastructure.
Yeah, but without DigiNotar there was no digital infrastructure at all.
Exactly.
Concerning the
and it's the same with the hospitals themselves. They're also not part of critical infrastructure, for instance, which we also feel, especially in these days, that it's really critical for the Dutch community that it should be there.
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, don't you think a lot of people would be concerned that the government is knocking on their digital front doors?
Yeah. And I know, I've noticed a lot of people are afraid of the government. I think it's good to have, although I'm really a liberal guy, so I don't like strong governments, but I think to have a nice environment where we can all live, the government has one task, and it's actually to make sure that it's a safe environment for us all. Yeah. And they do that on the street, but they should also do that on the internet. And that means that both the police and the intelligence services, they need to really have legislation to do their thing online as well, like they can do on the streets. A policeman has a gun, so he's always stronger than a burglar. But online, you see that the burglar is actually stronger because he can use techniques online which the police is not allowed to use. Yeah. And what also makes it difficult, of course, is the countries, they have borders, but the internet does not have. So if we're being attacked from Belarus, for instance, popular country these days, we're not allowed to do investigation online in computers in Belarus. And of course you can try to, that's what we always hear, that we should actually cooperate more with each other, but some countries we will never be able to cooperate with.
You could also say, and this is not a popular opinion of course, but why do we even accept traffic from Belarus or Russia? Which, of course, is the central idea of the internet.
Yeah, well, it's something. People are more and more debating that. It's the Balkanization, I think we call it, of the internet. Like China has their own internet, Russia as well, and I think, well, although it's very tough to make a distinction between what is critical or not, well, we could start with have a special internet for the critical infrastructure, for instance. So use the IP techniques and make your own little cloud. Which is much harder to enter from the outside, which is easy to do and has nothing to do with that, for instance, the NOS news site is being blocked from Russia or something, because you also want that Russian people are able to, well, it's in Dutch mostly, but to read
Dutch
your
people
news.
in Russia. I think it's blocked it was blocked in Turkey for a while. Actually.
Okay, yeah.
About encryption, a question from the audience. Every now and then, governments talk about weakening encryption because they cannot do surveillance anymore because of the strong encryption also protecting the bad guys. How do you feel about, well, there is actually some talk right now about forcing WhatsApp to hand over encryption keys if it's necessary, according to the government. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we should not weaken encryption. And actually, I spoke to Vert Grapperhaus, I think 2 weeks ago, with some NGO groups as well. discussion on this weakening of encryption because it looks like although he is demissionaire, he's not an active minister anymore, he still wants to leave something behind, I think, when he is gone, about weakening this WhatsApp. And I don't think we should do it. There's a couple of reasons. Because technically we can do it actually. Yeah? You can also say we can have an end-to-end WhatsApp encryption session running with a third party. And the third party could be the government. We have a group conversation. It's all, but it is still a very close community. Nobody else can listen in. And the third party could be the government. Yeah. So technically we would be able to solve that. But it's very hard actually how to manage it. Because you don't want it to be visible on the phone that you are being intercepted, because then people who build apps and detect that there's a secret third party actually joining the conversation. So that means that you should have this backdoor on everybody's phone. And it actually means that you make everybody a suspect beforehand already. So you manipulate a little bit the phone. But some others say, and they say they have a very good counter-argument. It's like, on every car is also a license plate. And the license plate is only there for the police actually to find you for speeding or for the cameras running. That's the reason why we have a license plate, but most of the people will never have a ticket. So we all have something, we give a little bit of privacy because sometimes the government thinks you might be a suspect.
A little bit, or is it more like the government putting a microphone in everybody's home and only putting it on if it's really necessary?
Yeah, that's also a very good analog, I think.
Which is kind of the other side of the
but if you talk
arguments.
to the lawmakers, they're not able to see actually that's the same, because they will say, no, we only will put in the microphone with a real suspect after a judge has approved it. But that's not possible.
But they're still pursuing this. That's interesting. I've written a story about this. I think it was just before the election, and then the story was like, no.
What Grapperhaus said actually is that he's still with what the cabinet said, I think in 2016 it was. And also he says, I'm in favor of strong encryption for everybody. Yeah. But he also wants to have access to WhatsApp. And what you see is that I think there's other ways to solve cases. And that's what we call the subsidiary argument. So if there's another way actually to get to data which is less
infringing.
Yeah, infringing, you should use that. And hacking actually could be less infringing. So if you want to have access to my WhatsApp, they should hack my phone and try to get the data because it's in clear text once you have hacked into my phone. Yeah. And I think we are not up to speed on doing actually that.
Because it's difficult and it's expensive.
It's difficult, expensive, but it's still possible. There's a lot of. That's one of my worries actually. What I see in helping organizations, protecting them from espionage, is that we're very well capable of actually protecting their laptops and the network servers and stuff and the cloud. But the phones are really a weak spot because they download all kinds of apps, they click on links, and it's very hard to monitor actually what the phone is doing. Yeah,
especially on iOS, but I guess it's what because you're using an Android phone yourself most of the time. What would you when securing companies, do you recognize that iOS devices are more secure? Or
no, I don't have. I have, of course, an opinion about Apple versus Google, but it's not about security. I don't like Apple because of how they actually make it hard to put all the stuff you want on your own phone.
Which could be safer.
Which could be safer, yeah. But they also, I don't like it how they push. It's part of a discussion now about, I think, Minecraft. Yeah. They want to have their own relationship with their customers. Yeah. And Apple says now you cannot have a direct relationship. You also pay to us. Yeah, Android is much more flexible. And also they pushed away all the Bitcoin apps, for instance. They don't like that. And I think if you have a phone, you should be open for everybody who has some software to run on it.
Yeah. And what should Google and Apple do to make? Because at the same time, we discussed earlier. At the same time, malware on smartphones is a pretty obscure phenomenon.
Yeah,
So
it's coming up now.
it's coming up. It actually in the news this week, but
Yeah.
but in fact, if you're doing a targeted attack, is it really easier to attack a phone than a laptop?
It's not really easy, but it's still possible. And there's a lot of 0 days have come out and have been fixed because Google is actually very good in actually monitoring what's happening on their devices. Like I said, with the red banner right on the top of my Gmail, they also noticed that there's something strange sometimes going on phones.
Yeah.
And they were able actually to find a couple of 0 days which were actually being misused by state actors. And for instance, one trick which has become public is that if you would set up a WhatsApp video call and you send out strange data, you could do some buffer overflows, which is a perfect way to send malware to a phone. And WhatsApp has all the rights it needs on a phone because it can access the pictures, it can access WhatsApp itself. It can send on the camera, switch on the camera. It has access to the GPS.
Record a microphone.
No, it can. The microphone is open then, and so it was, and it was there like for a couple of years. Nobody noticed it, but some hackers were actually able to exploit this for a long time. And WhatsApp is on every kind of device because it's the same WhatsApp on your iPhone. It worked as well.
But aren't you worried then you're using an Android device yourself? This could happen on iOS as well, of course. But what kind of measures do you take to, as far as you can tell, of course, to limit the risk for you?
Well, one of the things I never do is I'll send out gossip on my phone. So I will never, if I wouldn't like somebody or
you wouldn't. Okay.
I would.
You just tell somebody in person.
Yeah, well, I think because I found out that a lot of people actually got ashamed because their phone was hacked and was not about the secret. It was about how they discussed about the other relations they had. So gossip shouldn't be online.
Just offline, okay.
Just offline, yeah. Also with a beer. And I think assume breached is something which is a popular phrase now.
Yeah.
Assume that somebody is reading in your phone. And when I was doing last year, I was still working for or walking around in the intelligence agencies. Well, all the secrets we discussed there were never on devices which were online. It was also as a separate network offline, and which makes it hard to work actually during the Corona period. So we still had to go to the office. It was not possible to do your work from home.
It's not even legal, right, to discuss sensitive government matters?
Well, you can discuss top secrets if you're making a long walk on the beach, for instance. Yeah. But for it's hard. I spoke to.
You can't use Zoom or Teams.
No, you cannot use. You must only use the approved tools for that, which are being examined by the MBV, part of the AIVD. But it's also there's some regulation about the environment where you're using it. So if you're using it in your, so you can even use approved equipment. But if you put it in your home next to your Samsung TV with a microphone in it, there's no much use of using the special equipment. So it's not allowed to use it in your home then.
Another question from the audience, from an anonymous source, I guess. Do you still spend time on crypto analysis or other topics within crypto?
No, crypto analysis is way above my head these days. And it's real tough mathematics. And if you're not working on that in a daily way, then I think you'll lose the touch. And it's hard. But also we have now very good algorithms which are really strong and
good encryption,
with good encryption. But I still find, because the question is also if I find other topics within cryptography interesting. Yeah, I think quantum cryptography is interesting. Well, especially I'm really afraid about quantum computing, which will attack some type of algorithms.
Like RSA.
So the public key with the more mathematical primitives layer under it, and I'm afraid that maybe already or in a couple of years, an intelligence agencies will have a quantum computer which is able to actually break most of the cryptography we are using today. And we are much too slow actually in changing the algorithms into quantum-proof algorithms.
Because is it possible to do a quantum-proof? Is that possible for all types of encryption? Like
well,
public key
no. So
cryptography?
we now mathematicians are now working on new algorithms which are quantum proof.
Yeah.
But then you will see new issues because it will be lattice based. It's a very huge space where you need to calculate, which also means it's for computer power. It's very resourceful for a computer actually to do the calculations. It's also complex to implement, and all the times I was successful actually in breaking encryption. Well, most of the time actually I was successful because the programmers made errors during the implementation, and I'm afraid that if we're going to change from RSA to all new algorithms, we also will make the same implementation errors again. Yeah. So there's going to be a phase where now it's the strongest part of the chain, the encryption, but
it will get weaker for a while.
Yeah, I think it will be weak for a while, and I don't think we have that. We're not working hard enough actually to fix it already today.
But is it a sure fact that encryption will be broken at some point if a quantum
Well, if the quantum computer is working, it will for sure break public key encryption, for instance, the RSA. But it's not very sure if we can actually build quantum computing. Yeah, but for instance, we spent in the Netherlands like maybe 50 million euros or something. Especially in the TU Delft.
Right here, yeah.
Is doing that, but China is, for instance, $200 billion they're spending on quantum. Also quantum key distribution, which is useless, but I don't believe in that because then we are going to improve the already very strong link in the chain. But maybe that goes too far for this discussion.
Okay. And is another question also from Anonymous, is the monolithic nature of phones, especially iOS, but I would guess Android as well, as having the same core, not a major issue if hackers find a 0-day, they can use it at one, but at the same time this is possible for desktop systems as well.
Well, that's true, and what you see from the nerd community or the IT community, people using Linux, they say, for instance, I use Linux because it's more safe. Yeah. Well, it's not true. There's maybe even more vulnerability still in open source software and in Linux, but because it's a very much smaller install base, it's not that interesting for the attackers to try to find the 0 days in it. But I've seen state hackers actually, they have many more 0 days for macOS and Linux than they have for Windows. Because it gets being attacked every time, it will be getting more secure and more secure over time.
Is this true for the mobile operating systems as well?
I think they're both, they're in the same league, if you compare them on a security level.
But is it a problem that billions of people are using the same mobile operating system?
Well, it makes it more interesting actually to try to find the 0 days. That's why there's a public market for it. If you find a very good 0 day for an iPhone or an Android, then you can get millions of dollars for it. Yeah. So if we would have like 20 different operating systems for mobile phones, then it wouldn't be in the millions, and it would be like 100,000 or 200,000.
But at the same time, we would have 20 operating systems which might be less secure because there are less white-hat researchers.
In the long run, one will be the most secure. That's true.
Yeah. You're saying that Android is in the same league as iOS. For how long has that been the case?
Well, I think Android has done a very good job already from the beginning.
Yeah, even in like 2010, 11.
Yeah, I think the issues with Android are actually, it's not about the code inside, but it's their open strategy or the vision they have around it. For instance, I can install APK files from which are not through the Google Play Store, but Google says it's fine if you want to use software which has not been approved by us. Of course you can, because it's your device. That's the way I think how it should be. And this is what happened a lot in China and India. A lot of people got malware through this because they didn't want to pay for their software. But I still think it's a user decision. It's not that Google has less secure environment actually.
Yeah, because this week it was in the news that Android users were being affected with malware. At the same time, it's pretty hard to install your own APK on Android. You have to press, you have to enable the developer options, I believe, and then you have to find another the developer options and then enable the APK and then install it. Are people that eager to install malware then?
Well, I think you can also have malware which doesn't do any exploits. But if you,
of course, but in this case it wasn't.
Yeah, I think what's running right now is actually just malware which is trying to mimic that's actually your banking application.
Yeah.
So it's just another application with all the rights, because people will it ask for, do you approve that it has access to your microphone, that it has access to this and that, and people just say yes, 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 go.
I think we have time for one more question. What do you like more, the incident response part of your work, like when a company is breached, you then have to
fix it.
To fix it, yeah. Or the preventive work and trying to prevent a company from being hacked?
Yeah, I think it's hard to choose from. It's of course in a response phase, it's the adrenaline is there, and you really have to act quickly. It gives access, from my perspective, from the company to the C-level of the organization to have their attention actually. And it's you have a small window of opportunity actually to explain what has happened and how to fix it. So that's from a commercial perspective also a good way actually to enter in a new company. But being more on the preventive side, I think that's also fun. We are actually now working with companies which say, we understand that you don't have all the solutions out of the box for us right now, for instance, on protecting the phones. And they say, we want to pay you to help us to getting a more secure environment for the phones. And we can have actually research projects within their organization. And that's really preventive, because they actually want to find out about how can we build more secure, how can we get more secure tooling, which doesn't exist yet. And that's actually very fun to be really in the front line of building new products. And it's the same. This is also a new thing I see coming up. It was in the FD, I think, Financial Dagblad, Times of the Netherlands, last week, that ASML, for instance, is very much also busy with their supply chain. All the companies they rely on actually to build their stuff and to stay secure. They're actually training them and helping them and being a kind of an NCSC to them and to build a community around them to make it more secure. And of course, this assignment, the research thing, is also from a very large corporate. That is really something which has changed. They're now proud on what they're doing. Tomorrow I'm going to interview the CISO, the security officer of ABN.
Okay.
And he wants to, well, he shows very much in how he has actually set up a very good, I think, cybersecurity operation himself. He has 450 people working for him. And they're now, where the banks were very, in the past, very closed about what they do about security. He wants to change it now, and actually he sees also some responsibility to the customers of the bank, also the enterprises who are customer, to help them actually to getting more secure.
Because what's interesting about ASML, by the way, is that they still don't want to talk about what happened in, I believe it was 2015. Is it a shame that companies are so reluctant to talk about the fact that they are hacked, and then in the case of ASML this was public, but at some point in time, but also what happened exactly?
Well, I don't know anything about what happened at ASML. I was not there. So because I know, and I say this because I believe they also deny that they were actually hacked.
No, they actually the government confirmed.
Okay, well, but I think, I think also a company has a right to have some privacy, especially if there's no privacy or private information being stolen from customers. I think if KPN would be hacked with all customer data would be online, then they should actually notify also by law everybody. Yeah. But if you have a normal enterprise and you have your R&D has been stolen, I don't think you should. There's a moral obligation to go to the press and actually to tell about it.
I think they do, of course. But maybe it could help other companies.
But I know they do share that kind of war stories actually with their peers. Oh, yeah. And this is what happens around the NCSC with the ISACs. They have this information sharing and analysis centers. And I know that the same type of companies or in the sector, they actually discuss with each other all the breaches they had. And they share the lessons learned from that.
But another anonymous question from the audience. Is there something you would like to say to the students that are listening to this conversation in particular?
Okay. You're all going to be a master or and if you're from Delft, you're an engineer, which you should be proud of. But also, what I missed actually during my time here in Delft is being helped in becoming an entrepreneur. And I think that this has changed a little bit. We have Yes Delft here now in Delft. It's our organization which helps the startups. And I would say make sure that if you have the option to choose a number of vakken, trainings, courses you can follow, make sure you also do something around the business, because I've learned it the hard way during the time I was building up a company. And I think now it's possible actually to follow some courses actually in how to run a company. It's really useful. And also don't be afraid of, or don't think that you're actually going to do all your work in the study very small in what you did. You're going to be a master in a very technical environment, and you have a very broad range of possibilities to fall down.
Okay.
Right.
I think we need to quit.
Well, I think it's almost time. First of all, of course, thank you guys for coming. I really enjoyed it. We're here at, of course, the Aula. We have to pack up things soon as well. But I really enjoyed it myself, listening to you guys with some nice questions. Good sources to have. And well, first, thanks to the stream team of St. Jansbrug, also here at the back. You haven't seen them, but they're of course here. We're here with the Alumni Association, Kons en Huygens, who organized it today. And we of course want to thank you for coming here today, because without you it wouldn't be possible, of course. And we got a little something we want to give to you as appreciation, of course. But yeah, that basically concludes our onstage interview. Again, thank you guys for watching as well. I hope you enjoyed it, just as we did, and hopefully we'll see you soon again. Goed.